Hey everyone, we are the Three Princes and we go around looking for things to penetrate deeply.
Intellectual. Welcome to our show. It's going to be one of those days.
Hey guys, it's Duel, Mihira and Diresh with the Three Princes of Serendib. We're at a new place. We're in Duel's living room.
Which happens to be extremely noisy, has dogs running around, and we have a major vibration issue that we still don't know what it is.
Okay,
Plus, there are other people in the room.
Yes, we have an audience this time, yes. And today is a bit of a... We're going to be... it's a bit of a controversial topic today, isn't it?
Is it controversial?
I feel like it's a bit controversial. So I don't think Mihira knows. As always, we leave him in the dark all the way up until the day of the episode.
Yeah.
There is a satisfied look on his face.
No. I mean, if that's the satisfied look on your face.
So, on the way to a couple of meetings today, we were just discussing about how we work, our ethic of working, right? Because me and him have, for those of you who don't know, we actually run our own startup, which is called an SES.
No, let's cut this, let's make this straight.
Yeah.
We ran a startup for
There you
about 4.5 years. It crashed and burned, and then we started like glorified freelancing.
I guess so. That would be the best way to put it. And since all the way back in the day, one thing that has been consistent has been our work life and life was not something we really separated. But the entire conversation was how difficult it is for us to separate these two things. And what do you think? I mean, you're someone who comes from a completely different world than us.
So there was this brilliant. Now he's the CEO of Unilever. He used to say this question was asked from him some time ago, and he said, "There's nothing called a work-life balance. It's life. There's no work-life. It's just life."
You see, I got to agree with that.
Yeah.
Whether there is an ethic involved, so work and life is a very personal thing. I mean, don't let anyone lecture you on how you should work or how you should live. I don't think, for me, my personal experience, I gain tremendous amount of satisfaction out of the work I do. Mm-hmm. When I say tremendous amount, it has its peaks and valleys and precipices and deep holes, but it is something that I gain joy out of, so it makes me stay interested in the world. As a result of it, to me, it's not two things. Mm-hmm. My family, my relationships would beg to argue on that point, but
yeah, that's pretty much where I've got a lot of questions as well, right? I mean, in this line of work that we are, we would be considered, we aren't really a common kind of person. The people who actually enjoy sitting down and grinding day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out. What happens to our relationships? Like, what is the price we pay for this life?
First of all, I don't think anyone enjoys sitting down and grinding for hours and hours. I don't think that is a real. I don't think that exists.
Really?
No. So what happens is there are people that get into this very flowy state, what we call flow. Mm-hmm. There are people who get into flow, like for example, if you're coding, and if you're really into it, you are.
There's almost
coding
tunnel vision.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
Your tunnel vision. It happens to, like, even me if I am in a really stressful situation and I am focused on delivering a thing or the other. I have very, very defined tunnel vision. I know exactly what I'm doing, and that is all that I will do. I will not let the world interfere with me. Mm-hmm. The problem with that is it is fairly it's not sustainable. You will, your energy levels will dip over time.
What do you mean by this? By sustainable? Like, why exactly is it important for us to strive towards sustainable? Because I would propose as a counter strategy to that, which is to peak and drop and peak and drop. Just like let your efficiency fluctuate, so that the peaking actually outweighs your downtime.
Yes, that happens. So that's the thing. So what you do is, so you're right, there are peaks. So when I say it's sustainable, okay, think about this. If you start working at 19, as I did, or 18, as I did, and both of you have started working very young as well, right? Our average careers will span, if you live to it, 40 years.
Okay.
Okay. You're talking about 4 decades, 40 years of work. Okay. And you can't work at the beginning of that period the same way that you worked at the end of that period.
Mm-hmm.
It's 40 years.
Sure.
Okay. You're right. So I believe managing work is largely to do with managing your energy levels. So one simple trick I use is I say, okay, fine. This month or these 3 months, I'm going to hit at 90-95% of my capacity. So that means I can work. My head is ready for 12 to 14 hour days, weekends, and I am at the peak of my efficiency. My days are planned, my weeks are planned, my months are planned. I know exactly what's going to happen to a uncanny detail for somebody like me who is not organized. I hate being organized.
Sure.
I don't believe in being organized too much. But that happens. But now, if I can't sustain it, I can't go at 95% to at 95% efficiency for maximum 1.5 months. I can run at it. Then I have to layer it down. Okay. So at that point, I say, okay, I can't sustain this anymore. Let me bring it down to about 25% of my capacity. That means I am literally chilling at work. I'm just doing what is coming to my table.
Right.
What is expected out of people as you grow mature and older, the degree of fluctuation should gradually narrow.
Okay.
You
Because
should be closer to your standard deviation.
you have to be very close to your standard deviation, not for any other reason, because what will happen as you grow older and you grow mature and you go up your ladder or you start your business and your business starts growing, people look for consistency from a person that is giving them orders, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So now if you are shifting up and down at a very staggering pace, it's not consistent for the people.
You are not predictable.
You are not predictable to them.
Not just that, when you're dealing with clients directly, like we are, if you fluctuate too much, your client has to think twice about coming to you for work because they don't know if you're in a peak or a
Correct. So whether it is working with your friends, you're right. Whether it's you're working with your clientele, it's okay to do it. This is again a personal view altogether. It's okay to do it at least in the first 4-5 years of your career. How I would structure a work life would say the first 5 to 10 years, grind. If you can't find reasons to grind, find reasons to grind and grind.
Okay, so I have a question from that point itself. What if you work for 5 years somewhere and then you switch careers?
Okay.
Does the next 5 years also include grind?
I think it should, because what you're essentially trying to do at the inception of a career is to learn the skill set that is required to be proficient at that career.
Sure.
Okay. Now I guarantee you this.
Slack off on that.
You can't slack off in that first initial learning experience. You can,
But it won't be good for you.
yeah, it's like the velocity in a rocket that is taking off.
If you don't have the
if
velocity
you
to
escape the atmosphere, you will not.
You'll just come back.
you will just be coming back at some point or the other very fast, right? It's the same thought process. So at least in the first 5 to 10 years, I would say don't get too bogged down with the idea of, okay, fine, I need to find some degree of balance. It's okay to find some degree of balance. I think you should go out, you should meet your friends, you should have relationships, you should party, you should meet your parents, enjoy time with your family. All of that should be done. But remember, it's launch point. So you're exerting the most amount of energy, and that energy must be exerted because you need momentum to move. Because you're going from a standing start.
So that's the other thing I've always thought about work, right? It's sprints of momentum.
What do you mean?
You need to put enough fuel into the engine for you to gain some momentum, like mass times velocity, right? So you need the velocity because your mass is essentially the same. So you need to have a certain amount of push.
Okay, is that an external push or an internal push?
That would depend on what your current condition is. Like if you have a financial situation that requires you to make a certain amount of money over a certain period of time, then you have an external push.
Right, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
But if you have a personal goal of, say, renting out an apartment in Colombo 7, then you have an internal push. Or you want to drive like a BMW, whatever. That is something that you want, therefore it is an internal push.
Yeah, so it doesn't. So the idea is basically, however you perceive it to be. So when I started, to me it was I wanted to be really good at what I do. I mean, like, it hasn't changed. I still want to be really good at what I do.
Yeah.
So one thing that I kept on saying to myself, you need to keep on working at what you do. How I approach it has vastly changed.
Okay.
I was in advertising, so I've gone through 18-hour work days on a consistent basis. And to date, I don't complain about it because I'm very confident that I can do 18-hour work day for a week and a half without flinching. Because I know in my head, in my experience, I am within my mind and my body is ready for something like that.
Right.
Now, do I do it now? No, I don't do it now. I don't need to do it now.
Yeah.
Okay. Because my jobs have changed, my circumstances have changed.
Sure.
But I think it's very necessary for people to, like, especially young people starting out, to have that. Don't get too PC about, or not, don't get too caught up in the idea of, okay, my first job must give me a 8 to 5 work time period, and then I want to go home and chill, and I want to meet my friends and all that, which you see a lot in the current circumstances. Because people don't want to strain themselves too much. Because the question they ask is, why do you need to work like this? I'll give you one reason as to why you need to work like this, at least at the beginning. Because if you don't work like this at the beginning, you will not get that good towards the end. Now, there are geniuses.
You won't get good enough to be able to chill.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't gain enough momentum over time. This is the most common
Momentum over time is acceleration.
So and over time, as you do this, it starts picking up. There are people that learn over time, and there are people who peak in a different way. Like you gather momentum as you go along.
Sure.
But those are, in my experience, and I've worked around thousands of people, and most of them, those cases are fairly rare. So that's what you need to remember. Eventually, work should be fulfilling. I would say. So there's this thought process that says passion is driven. Do something that you're passionate about. But I think of it. This is the new thinking on what being passionate is about. If you are good at it, you become passionate at it. It's reversed.
We got it the wrong way.
Yeah.
First time,
So
right.
Where you find people that say I am passionate about what I do, are largely people who are inherently talented in the field that they have chosen. For example, musicians or artists. So I am passionate about this
Yeah.
because I am not, because when I got into it, I found it easy to do. But then as time went on, my skills developed and I found it extremely easy to do.
Yeah.
And therefore, I love what I do.
Right.
Wow, but that makes it really cool, right? For like all throughout our lives, we are taught that there is this one thing that you have a passion for. You just need to go find it. You can now change your focus from looking for what you're passionate about to just what you're good at, right? If you can find something you're good at and then start putting some effort into that.
See, I think we've got the concept of find something you're passionate about wrong, right? Because if you look at people who have excelled in things, it's generally an abstract concept that they're passionate about. And there's a lot of things that stem downwards from that. It could be any one of those things. It's just that they happen to discover one of those verticals.
Bit too vague. What do you mean?
What do you mean? I'm finding it vague as well.
Sorry.
Give me an example.
Take Leonardo da Vinci, right?
I won't equate us to Leonardo da
No,
Vinci.
I'm not either. But no, as an example of people being capable at a lot of things. So, artist, painter, engineer, sculptor.
You say any sentence, any word, right? He can probably do it.
Like a fencer, like a whole bunch of things, right?
Was he a fencer?
Who knows?
He probably was.
He probably was.
If he wasn't, he would be damn good at it.
But see, the thing is, all those things sort of boil back to wanting to understand something inherent. At least the way he went about sculpting, he wanted to find something inherently true about whatever it was he was doing. Because he actually started cutting bodies up like cadavers to figure out how muscle and sinew connected to each other, and that he replicated in his sculptures. And even with the painting, it was as realistic as it can get.
Yeah.
With engineering, it was, these are the fundamental laws of physics that I am aware of.
And this is what I need to achieve. Let's just bridge these two.
Exactly. So it's a fundamental understanding about the truth of whatever reality that he perceived, and then extrapolating from that. That was what he was good at. He wasn't good as an artist.
But how does it
relate to us, Dinesh? That's where it is.
So my point is, understanding a fundamental reality that you perceive and then figuring out how to manipulate that was the abstract concept that he was good at, right? And most people would think that I have to be passionate about music, but there is probably one level higher than that will lead them to a lot of things that they'll be passionate about.
Yeah. So where I would differ is, in order for you to perceive it in that manner, you have to be a fucking genius. So understand, the power of perception is a rarity. It's not common.
Okay.
Capability to understand reality or understand reality as it is, then break it down. My general experience is, there's a announcement going on.
Oh, well, there you go.
My general understanding of people is, especially when they are in their late teens and early 20s, they have very little capability to perceive the world as it is.
Sure.
You're talking about the 1%. Let's think about this from a model that will work for the vast majority and not the exception.
Right.
Okay. That is where I say passion is something that you work at. It's not something that automatically comes into you. It's not a spirit that lives within you. The spirit has to get built within you. So don't look at passion from the perspective of I have to now go and do 100 things to find something that I'm passionate about. I mean, remember, it is very difficult for majority of people in the world to find things that they are passionate about. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
95% of the world will not find things that they are passionate about. Right? And like, think about it. How can you ever be passionate about something like marketing when you've never been taught what marketing is? Or how can you be passionate about something like accounting or finance when you have only dabbled in it in preschool or like in school?
Yeah.
So passion is not, I would say to the vast majority of the world, don't look at passion as this thing that will manifest within you, and you will be overwhelmed by it and you will be moved by it, and therefore you don't have to put effort into it.
It's not a Hollywood love story, right?
It is not a Hollywood love story. The reality is the reality.
Yeah.
The likelihood that will happen to you is slim to none.
Yeah.
Probability of that happening to you is slim to none. Therefore, approach it from the other angle.
Right.
Let me find something. Let me get good at it. As I get good at it, I will get passionate about it. That is what happened to me, at least.
Okay.
As I get better and better at my skill set, it starts moving into almost flow. Now, because I'm getting better at my skill set, and there is a loop, like a what do you call
The feedback loop.
a feedback loop says, "Great, you're doing well."
You keep.
I
working
keep
at it.
on. I keep working at it. I keep learning, and it keeps on building and keeps on building and keeps on building, and that momentum again carries you for a long amount of time. Very important. Very important when you're starting out. Have some cheerleaders around you.
Sure.
Yeah, whether it's your parents, your family, your friends, whoever.
Yeah.
When you're starting out, especially working, if you're working, either way you're working for a corporate or whether you're working for a startup, build yourself a decent feedback loop. And there are people who have done with this without the feedback loop altogether. But try to build yourself a feedback loop that gives you momentum or motivation to keep on doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So, and that feedback loop can be positive or negative, right?
No. So try to find a positive feedback loop. There will be times where there will be a negative feedback loop.
Isn't that a subjective thing though? So, like, for example, there are some people who, when told that they can't do something, will do everything in their power to prove those people wrong.
So I'm not talking about personalities.
Okay.
This is not, what I'm saying is not about a personality thing. Forget about the personality.
Okay.
Bottom line, when you're starting out,
Right.
ensure that, the likelihood you will like what you start out to do, in very rare cases will be something that you are completely into. How I find it is, most of these things that we get into at the get-go and you completely fall in love with them are generally artistic subjects, or it is very esoteric thought processes, like you do go into philosophy or mathematics or something like that, where you have an inherent born talent for it. And the moment you discover it's like a hand in glove, no? The moment you discover it, that it operates at a very high level, and you poke your finger in there and realize, my God, this operates at a higher level and I have a talent for it. Let me get into this. And when you get into it, you go, boom.
Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't happen to a lot of people.
Right.
It can't happen to a lot of people. There are not so many talented people in the world.
Yeah. That would fall within the Pareto distribution.
It completely goes against the romantic belief that everyone has some talent.
No, I don't think that is true. Knowing that, if you have it, great, pursue it.
Yeah.
But don't get disheartened by the fact that you don't have it.
Yeah.
Because what you can do is, practically what you can do is, you can pick a subject that you want. You might not be great at it when you start. If you build on it over time, once you start getting good at it, I guarantee you will take off.
Right.
And the nice thing about that is, you know the trouble that you have gone to get good at it as well.
Sure.
So you don't want to let it go as well. So you keep on going. So don't look at it from the perspective of I'm passionate only about one thing. I will only do that one thing. Don't. It's a very narrow, shallow way, and it's a very romanticized idea about work.
Yeah.
And I don't think, especially if you're starting out, you should think like that.
So in this non-romanticized version that you guys are both agreeing on over here,
Yeah.
taking myself as a third party, just as the antagonist over here as for a bit.
No,
But-
I mean, it's pretty standard that like I'm a classical thinker. A lot of how I think comes from like Socratic method or whatever you want to call it. It just helps deal with reality better than trying to romanticize.
What do you mean
everything.
Socratic method?
So there's essentially two schools of thought. There's classical thinking and there's romantic thinking.
Yeah.
How I like to break it down to simplify it for anyone to understand. Classical thinking is based on objective reality and romantic thinking is based on subjective reality. I don't
Explain that a little deeper because everyone wants to know what that is.
Okay. So, objective reality is a reality that exists outside what you feel about it. Like, it can be good, it can be bad, but it is true. So, you have to figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Subjective reality would be how you would perceive anything. Like, what you feel about it is essentially how you would go about working around it.
Correct. Okay.
Now, the problem with the latter is it doesn't take into account objective reality, which I think is a real thing. Like I don't think that that we exist outside something and we have to play with the rules of the world that's given to us, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And the rules of the world that is given to us doesn't necessarily always align to your reality. That's
Exactly.
the truth, right?
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying passion doesn't come. Passion you garner, you build, you develop over
So
time.
you have to grind for passion so that you have the passion to grind.
Correct. It
Seems like the most cruel joke I've ever heard of.
No, it is a cruel joke. Sorry, it is a cruel joke, but it is a truth for many people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then what do I do if I don't have a talent? What do you
Build one.
think I should be doing?
Build one.
You don't need a talent.
You don't need a talent. That's the whole point.
Hard.
That's the whole starting point of the thought process. Where
Yes,
you say,
but we are passionate about the things that we are good at, and talent is something that we have an inherent
Yeah, but
skill
hard work
at,
is
right?
still a thing.
yeah.
And you can still work hard enough so that you just grind
think
yourself
about-
into liking
Think
it.
about it this way, right? If someone is talented at something, but they never practice, versus someone who is absolutely not talented in something, who practices 15 hours a day, who do you think is going to be better in 10 years?
Ideally, the person who practice, because it doesn't matter what your talent is.
Exactly.
Okay.
So my
But that still does not explain what about the passion. Because
Well,
I mean, it's
if
not
you
about getting good at
practice
something.
15 hours a day for 10 years, if that isn't passion, I
that is
don't know
passion.
what
is passion. Yeah. So that's
I
the
mean,
thing.
okay, yeah. What is passion? But how are you distinguishing hard
Okay.
work from passion over
Okay,
here?
oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I think okay. Let's break down what passion is then. To me, what I am passionate about doesn't detract energy from me. It doesn't make me tired.
Okay.
It makes me keep going and going and going. So that's my version of passion.
you can do a 3-day death march to achieve like this one thing, and you feel good at the end of 3 days, not bad.
It doesn't detract. It's not energy zapping for me. Yeah. It makes me feel comfortable about what I am doing.
Yeah.
It makes me go into flow.
And at the end of the whole process, you're like, oh, that was a good 3
Good.
days.
Correct. Exactly. And that is to me what passion is. And as a result of it, I deeply inherently start loving that experience. Eventually, I think what passion is a experience that you either love today because you have experienced it, or experience that you're going to love tomorrow because you are about to experience it. That's why I'm passionate for the future. I'm passionate about the work that I'm doing in the future because I've completely fallen in love with what I've done in the past.
Right. Okay.
So those are the three big things for me. It doesn't zap energy. It makes me move forward, thinking, okay, because I have energy in the past, I'll continue to have this energy because I'm doing this same task.
Right.
To me, it's a love for the process of doing something and not so much the outcome.
Yeah, it's the same thing. You've just explained it in the way you like to explain it.
Yeah.
It's
In a
I
way
like
that you
single
have
sentences, right?
in a way that you have a passion for.
what do you believe is the definition of a passion?
So this is okay. Up until the beginning of this conversation, what I always thought passion was a subject that you find deep interest in, that you can continuously work at without having energy drained from you.
Correct.
Right? But the problem over here is, if you work hard enough, apparently you can be passionate at anything, which
Exactly.
makes it. Then what was it that I liked in the beginning? What was what I called a passion in my head?
Interest.
That's just interesting. Yeah. Okay.
It can be interest. It can be necessity. It can be many things. It may not be passion. That's the point is that it is not passion.
I mean, if passion can be
Curiosity,
manufactured,
like-
right?
Yeah.
It can be curiosity. It can be many things. It doesn't necessarily have to be passion. About passion. So I think where I can leave a thought for everyone who's starting: don't be heartbroken if you don't find your passion.
Right.
Build it.
Whatever you are doing right now will eventually
Become one if you do it well enough, if you are interested enough, if you keep at it for long enough.
But you have to start reducing the negativity you have towards the topic as well.
Yeah.
Like that's
Increase positivity, reduce negativity,
Yeah.
find feedback loops that will encourage you. Build your skills to a point where it's not cumbersome for you to do it.
Yeah.
And this happens, like, I'll tell you my experience. I mean, I didn't know how to do equal sum
Open
on a
Excel
open
sheet.
Excel sheet on an Excel sheet until I joined Unilever.
Right.
I literally didn't know how to do that.
But then with your age, was that something that you had to have known?
Yeah, so I was not.
It's not that old.
Yeah,
But I don't know what computers were like back in his day.
yeah. I mean, like we had to share like one of those like massive ass.
See, you don't even know what those things. I've never even seen those.
As what?
We had a what do you call like the
An
first
IBM?
an IBM computer, old IBM computer.
Wow.
Yeah.
When it was called International Business Machine.
Yeah, I think so. But like
that's
I didn't know how to do finance.
Just in general.
In general, I mean I didn't know how to do like basic Excel sheets even. When I got into it, I was horrible at it because I'm not good at math.
Right.
I couldn't see numbers. It was a big jargon, and it was truly draining for me to do it.
Oh, right. Okay.
It was truly draining, and every time my bosses come and say, okay, do this 5-year profitability or do this some more equation or do this volume up and all that, I go, oh my god, because if I start say Monday this week, I will be doing it for 3 weeks, because every time I go with it, there was an error, redo, error, redo, and this cycle just went on and on and on. And then after a while, I was very clearly told, you are not good at your numbers. You better buck up and solve it, because you can't work in this place if you don't. Yeah. So that was my external motivator.
Sure.
My internal motivator was, fuck, how can I not be good at this? And it was.
Did you feel personally attacked?
I felt personally attacked, because I mean I don't like to be told that I am not good at something.
Right.
And there are thousands of things that I'm not good at, but
When you care about something.
I didn't, because if it was required for my job, I had to learn it.
Yeah.
Then for the next 2 years, I did not let anyone touch any of my financials. I did it all on my own.
Right.
I had accountants that will do it for me.
Yeah.
But I just did it myself, and I kept on passing it on to the accountant just to check. I was really bad at the beginning, and gradually I got better and better and better at it.
Right.
And thankfully, there were people around me that kept on coaching me and making me better. The feedback loop.
The feedback loop, yeah.
And the result of that was after about 2 years of going through the grind, I could do it in my sleep. What I would take 3 to 4 weeks to do, I can do it in an hour.
Right.
I became proficient at it.
Right. Do you enjoy doing it?
Now I love it. Now I love it. I completely find such pleasure when I get into it. See, the thing is this: I don't have to do it because I have an army of accountants around me. But now I enjoy it so deeply, and the more important thing is because that skill was built over time. I know what to look for. I know the nuances. I know where the breakdowns are. I know where the problems are.
Yeah.
So now when an accountant comes to me with a piece of data or a financial problem, I can look at it and say, okay, fine. There might be a problem here. There might be a problem here. I want you to check on the problems.
Right.
And when a chartered qualified CFA qualified accountant comes and talks to me about a problem, I have no problem understanding it either.
Okay.
Because I understand the underlying workings of it.
Yeah.
So that's what happens. It's a skill that you don't have. You build the skill. Once you build the skill, it becomes flow. Once it becomes flow, you are there, then you have to keep on improving on it, obviously, over time, because things change. But that initial work remains with you. It's like riding a bike.
You have to do it.
You have to fall and fumble and tumble, and then you get up and you start riding, and that becomes and over time what I've realized is I look back and I think to myself, my God, I was so horrible at numbers. And now I am good. And this is the thing. It jumped. So the requirement. So when I was in Sri Lanka, I got pretty good at it.
Right.
But then I went to India, where everyone is an engineer and everyone does math to the second decimal point in their head. That's a different level altogether. I had bosses who, by the time I type a sum onto Excel, they would have calculated it to the second decimal point. And this is a common thing. This is not an exception. There are no exceptional.
This is the standard.
This is the standard.
Yeah.
Now I had to push my numbers. Now I had to push my game up again.
Yeah.
Now, at that point, I was again scared.
Yeah.
So again, I started doing mental math was the thing. I started doing mental math. I downloaded apps, kept on backing at it and say, okay, fine, this is how you do it over time.
Right.
I never got as good as them over time, but I guarantee you I improved.
Right.
And sometime later, you do realize, because you again have that training or that skill has now built in your head, now you can look at a vast set of data and still make things out much better than it was before.
Yeah.
So that's what happens. I am not afraid of numbers anymore.
Right.
I am not great at it. I'm not good at it. And if anyone who has worked with me would attest to this, I am not the best at it, but I'm not afraid of it. It doesn't drain me to do it.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I love solving problems through numbers as well.
Right.
So that has happened. So that's essentially it. I mean, if you want to develop into a passion, if you keep on learning it, it becomes part of your system.
I have a very similar experience, right? Like when I started learning how to design logos, I was horseshit at it. Right? Like you could literally take a dump on the floor and take a picture of it, and that would be a better logo than what I would propose. And there were so many client rejections, and back then the process that I used to come to the logos as well included having like 5 different options and you being able to choose from one of them, which is what a lot of designers do. Then what I did was I went and looked at brand guides and logo manuals made by made by people that I think are great logo designers. Paul Rand was one of them. I luckily the logo that he made for Next has his whole thought process documented beautifully. In like his typical Paul Rand was as good a writer as he was a logo designer. Some argue that he was a better writer than he was a logo designer.
Which actually brings me to a cool point. We should find someone to talk about writing. Don't you think?
We should bring
We should.
Yeah.
Maybe next week.
Probably.
Probably.
But yeah, so I went through this document, and so before I went through the document though, there is this video on YouTube of how Steve Jobs reacted when he saw the cover of the manual.
What was on the manual? Like, what was the cover? What did the cover look like?
The cover was solid black with the letters NEXT for Steve Jobs' company Next displaced randomly.
Oh, right. Okay.
Which then he goes through the process of coming up with this like serif typeface where he has the E in simples and all the other letters in capital, and then he explains why that is, and it goes from it being in like this one line to having different arrangements and different typefaces, why he chose the typefaces that he chose, and then he arranges it into a cube.
What?
Yeah, he arranges the letters for Next into a cube.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So there's a capital N, a simple E, a simple X, and a capital T.
Right.
And the N and the E on one line, the X and the T on the other line, and that is the top face of the cube, and you have two faces of the cube coming down.
Right. Okay.
Everyone has seen the Next logo. I mean, like everyone who has watched the movie, I'm sure has seen the Next logo.
Sure.
I have not watched the movie, so I have not seen this logo.
It's not what you would look and say, oh my god, that's a beautiful logo. But that's not the point of a logo.
I know what this is, and I'm pretty sure you know what this is. But what exactly is the point of a logo? In as short a sentence as possible.
In your portfolio of distinct brand assets, it is the identifier.
Yeah, it's the most common identifier. It is the most common identifier. And other than I would say the phonetic sound of it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's the most common identifier.
So, number one is the sound, number two is the logo.
Yeah.
Which means that a lot of businesses are doing it all wrong and they're not even thinking about their sonic brand.
Yeah, I think sonic branding is a new thing that is coming up.
Even more than the sonic brand, it's more about how the word rolls off the tongue.
Oh, right. Okay. I mean, but that's part of the sonic brand as well. If you really think about it. Right?
Yeah. Segue. My God, that is a long segue.
Yeah. All right. Back to where we were.
But sure. So when I went through that, I went through a couple of Michael Beru and Massimo Vignelli, brilliant designers, and I absolutely love all their work. I'm not going to say all their work because I haven't seen all their work, but in general, I love things that come out of them. I love how they think about this problem. But Paul Rand is the only one that I know who gives you one solution for a logo, because his thought process is that you are paying me to solve a problem. If I give you several solutions to that problem, you know that I don't have any real backing behind any one of the solutions. Like regardless of which one you choose, it doesn't matter. Not exactly the most confident way to put a logo forward, right? Or any piece of work for that matter. So I figured out how to sort of weld my process of getting the client requirement with his version of getting one proper logo out.
Right.
And the amount of thought that I had to put into getting that to work changed me as a human being, like not just as a designer, but like the way I approach things now in all aspects of my life has changed thanks to that.
I think you just touched upon something that so I told you my experience about learning something. Yeah, and you told
My experience of
learning something. I think that is the greatest ever skill.
Right.
Especially when you're starting out, it is the capability to learn.
Right.
Learning to learn is probably the greatest human skill ever. because you can approach learning from multiple directions. Yeah. But there is generally an inherent version to you. Like there's a version that
There's
works
a
for
technique
you.
of learning.
There's a technique of learning to you. And one thing you should never do is you should never stop learning how to learn things.
Sure.
There are people who can break things down into its bare bone and reconstruct it, and in the reconstruction they learn something. They learn how to learn a subject.
Yeah. First principles, suppose.
Yeah, basically you can call it first principles, right? There are people. My example of how I learned finance was not breaking. I mean, I didn't know the mechanics of what I was doing, but because I trained myself and practiced, that taught me the mechanics later.
Right.
As I learned.
So you learn that more empirically than first principles.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now over the years, my approach to learning has changed. Now I look at it. I don't necessarily have to go through this empirical iteration based learning process.
Yeah.
Now I can, because I am much more aware about the circumstances that I am in, I can now break it down and learn something. Break a difficult subject down and learn.
See, I think that has a lot to do with how your horizontal thinking capacity increases across the number of things that you learn.
Yeah. Basically what you're saying is as your experience becomes wider, your capability to draw from things and
Be able to connect the dots.
becomes better.
Yeah.
That's true about everything. I mean, that's why we honor older people, right?
Yeah.
Because their capability to connect the dots because of their vast experience is far greater.
Yeah.
But coming back to the core point, there is no greater skill. Again, when you're starting out, one is finding your passion is one thing, but in order to find your passion, make the process of learning a skill as easy as possible. And there are many books on this. There are many techniques to it. Find ways to find your own style of it, but find it. It's very important you find it, because your grind becomes a little bit more easier as a result of it.
And I mean, if you enjoy learning, a grind stops really being a grind.
Yeah, if you are deeply again, but that's again the exception. A lot of people don't enjoy the natural absorption of knowledge is not true to not realistic about a lot of people. And the other thing is, what you need to remember is, you might love to learn lots of things, but learning a subject is far more hard because it requires far greater focus.
Yeah. And it becomes harder and harder to find things to learn.
From that single point of focus.
Yeah.
What you need to try and do is you need to find the best way to learn things for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very critical part of, again, maturing and maturing and growing.
Right.
And I was listening to a Navy SEAL say this on a Joe Rogan podcast, and he said, I think the biggest skill
is this that Jocko?
Not Jocko. This is not Jocko.
Okay.
This is not Jocko. He said, the best skill I learned in the Navy SEALs is not to shoot, not to communicate, and not to blow things up, and not to move. The best thing I learned was I was taught how to learn.
Right.
So I can go anywhere
and adapt to the
situation and the circumstance, and I can learn.
Sure.
And because my brain is so well set up to learning things, it's very easy for me to learn things. Again, it's a skill. You need to work at it as well. Generally what happens is people become very lazy to learn over time, especially when your skill sets are developing and all that. People get lazy and lazy as time goes on.
Why do you think that happens?
I think it's largely to do with comfort levels. I think because your learning is energy exerting process. If you're learning about like a focused thing, it's an energy exerting process. But I think it's largely to say, okay, I am comfortable now, so I don't want to learn. Other thing is there is a tremendous amount of ego that gets developed in people's minds.
With learning.
With experience, there is ego that develops in people's minds because I know better than what is being taught to me.
Right.
And everyone, like I am definitely like I've gone into enough workshops thinking to myself, what the fuck would this bugger know how to tell me what to do? many of them, and I've gone there and I've sat down and I was like, fuck, I didn't know that. Like multiple times. So ego is a big problem. It's a big inhibitor to learn.
Right.
My standing view about things is I can be egoistic with regard to the work I do. It's my work. Yeah. And a degree of professional arrogance is necessary to operate in the world.
Sure.
Not to be an asshole arrogant, not to be an asshole and be arrogant.
But when you know something is going to work,
you have to be arrogant.
Yeah.
But that arrogance should never. My standard saying is, I can be arrogant professionally, but if you teach me something worthwhile, I will sit at your feet and I will learn it from you. I don't care whether you are a CEO or a person sweeping the floor.
Right.
If you are teaching me how to sweep the floor better, I will worship you for that.
Right.
For that, I need to relieve myself of my ego. Yeah. It's the same, my experience with like you two or like the many of my friends that are fairly younger than me. If I am arrogant about how I approach, say, either of you, let's take both of you as an example, I would be not so fun to hang out with, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm learning from you, it makes more sense for you guys to, because you know that there is some value that is being dispensed towards me.
Yeah.
And there's something that I'm dispensing. Yeah, there's a give and take.
Yeah, definitely.
So one thing you should never be egoistic about is if somebody is trying to teach you something, learn it. And more importantly, learn your technique to learn things. Yeah. So that's a very, very critical thing about, in a way, finding even your passion.
I mean, if you don't know how to learn, it's going to be pretty difficult for you to start exploring different subjects as well.
Yeah. I mean,
not just that, even the one thing that you know, how do you get better at it?
Get better at it. It's basically the keys to the kingdom over there.
Yeah. Like, I honestly believe that the reason that humans have survived for this long, being the like soft meat bags with no claws or whatever that we are, is purely from our ability to adapt.
Learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And adapting can't happen without learning.
There's a few of those things. Like,
There's a few of these things.
There's our ability to communicate with each other.
And there's capacity to develop language. There's several things. But all those things fall second to learning.
Humans really aren't the best at adapting. I don't really think they are. Because if you really look at what they have done, they've all banded together and decided to be like, oh, we don't need to adapt as long as we make the environment adapt to us.
No, I beg to differ on that one. Humans have been the best at adapting. It's just we haven't evolutionarily really adapted. It is not a genetic adaptation. It is a behavioral. It's a behavioral adaptation, and we have been fantastic at it.
We don't see roads in any other kind of creature. We are the only ones that we have gotten together and like.
We have colonized Antarctica, man.
Yeah, but we have changed the environment to suit us. It's not the other way. We didn't.
Doesn't matter. It's still a format of
It's
still a format of adaptation. It is still a format of adaptation.
It's not like we can physically change ourselves to survive in the Antarctic. No.
Yeah, no,
So
that's
what we
fair
can
enough.
do-
But more often than not, our first response is to always. It's not to adapt ourselves. It's to pretty much do as much changes as we can to not change. That's a key motivator in most
That's
of the
because what we're trying to not change is physiological at that point.
And now that we are now we are trying to change that as well.
Yeah, which is what this CRISPR and all this stuff is about. Right?
Yeah, but okay, so just to put things into perspective, right? If can't remember where I heard this. I think it was on a Joe Rogan podcast again. In somewhere in the US, they're introducing a kind of salmon, a pink salmon, I think, to a school of killer whales,
Okay.
like orcas. And that is because the orcas are running out of food. Their standard food source is supposed to be seals or something.
Right.
Like that. So, and orcas in other schools of orcas actually eat the pink salmon.
Okay.
These guys just ignore the pink salmon because they refuse to eat anything other than seals.
Fantastic.
They would rather starve to death,
Then eat pink salmon.
which is it's really bad adaptation.
Yeah. So humans have done a fantastic job with it.
Oh, right. From that lens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
anyway,
mean, we have to compare ourselves to other species. on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
planet,
Yeah.
right?
Fair enough.
no. Again, so coming back to the segue, like we were talking about finding a passion, finding a passion. I mean, working towards finding a passion is very critical. I think the most critical experience is finding a skill.
Yeah.
Like developing your skill set to find your passion. It's very important to learn how to learn things.
Right.
And coming back to, so let's come back to the original question that we were asking, work and life.
We've heard a lot about work.
Yeah. I think where people go again wrong is work. It should not be an energy zapping experience. Is the essential thought process in the work.
If you wake up on a Monday morning and like, oh shit, I have to go to work.
Oh, that happens all the time, by the way.
Does it?
Oh yeah, it happens all the time.
Okay, so I've been working 7 days a week for a while now. So.
No, it happens all the time. So one thing you must always, you will never be in eternal bliss forever.
Yeah.
Because we are not at that stage. You can be the most passionate person about the most passionate thing that you're doing. It's perfectly fine, but you will still have drab days.
Oh yeah.
You will have drab months. You will have drab years. You will have like shit bucket, like bad multiple years as well.
Right.
That is a reality that you have to contend with. That will never go away.
That actually makes it a lot easier because when I did have a shit year, I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah, exactly. The path you are taking it will never be always good. It cannot be. If it is, pinch yourself, you are in a dream.
Right.
Yeah. That doesn't happen. What you need to do is, basically prep yourself. Know that there is a bad time coming anyway. It will always come.
Yeah.
Number 2, when you are in a bad time, remember why you are doing what you are doing. Yeah. And gradually work towards coming out of it. And sometimes you will have to drag yourself out of it. Sometimes you need help. Find that help. Talk to people. Talk to people that are smarter than you. Please don't go and talk to if you are ever in a
room where you're the smartest person.
No. Forget about the room. If you are ever in a situation where you are going through a tough time, try your best to go and look for a person that has more experience, that has more knowledge about things, and who has experienced the world in a little bit broader manner.
And also, I think it's added over there that if someone who knows less than you comes looking, you should probably help them too.
Correct. That's very true.
Yeah.
But one thing you should not try and do is don't try to solicit advice from people that are your equals, because they are finding themselves in the dark. So like for me, I am surrounded by, thankfully my friends are fairly exceptional people. They are very talented people. Like at my age level, they are very successful at what they do. But when I am going through a tough time, I don't go to them, despite their knowledge and their capabilities and their skills and all that, because they operate in roughly the same band of wavelength as I do.
Right. They have the same lens.
Yeah. they not the same lens. They might have different lenses to look at life or look at work, but it is still within the periphery and the perimeter of your life.
Oh, right.
It's
So you need to
always
see what the next step is.
you should always try to solicit advice from people that have a greater view about the world.
Right.
So always my general view is either talk to a smart person, like a really smart person, somebody you know is clearly smarter than you,
Right.
or somebody who has experienced the world much better than you, or somebody who has gone through that experience prior to you.
Okay.
Right.
Either way, that
And come out successfully.
and come out successfully.
Yeah, I'd argue that. I mean, you definitely get some information out of the person who didn't actually make it out as well. You'd know exactly what not to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, whatever, however you want to. But anyway, somebody who has gone through some experience of that nature. But essentially, what I'm saying is always try to solicit advice from people that are beyond your immediate periphery of knowledge and capability and skill.
Yeah.
So that is, I think, very critical for you to come off the drops that you will find in life, especially in work. It's very, very important to do that. It's always good to have a mentor.
Yeah.
It's always good to have a colleague that is slightly senior to you that you can have a conversation with.
Yeah.
If you are in a startup, it's always good to have people that can guide you, that will give you time and effort and energy to guide you.
Yeah.
If you don't have them with you right now, find them. It's very important.
Yeah.
Because what we go through either in life or in work, it's complicated. Okay. And life, given the opportunity, is going to be miserable.
And honestly, when it's like, especially in a startup, when you're making no revenue and you have nothing to really show, it becomes a very emotional situation, right?
Correct.
And at the end of the day, what you need in that situation when you're trying to break out of that rut is someone who can take the emotion away from it and tell you what the logic behind it is.
Correct. And sometimes, Dinesh, it is to tell you, okay, this is your emotion right now. It's not even to take away the logic is very important, but it's not only to take away the emotion. It is to tell you, okay, this is your emotional state right now.
And it's fine.
It is fine for one thing. This is how you're going to manage it. You can manage it in this manner.
Sure.
In this way. Because they have now gone through this process
Right.
over once.
Yeah.
So it's very important to find people like that in your life so that it lends back to having a great feedback loop.
From your environment. Yeah.
It's very, very important to find a great feedback loop.
So build your support systems.
Yeah. Avoid criticality beyond a certain point in your life.
Right.
Don't hang around with people that say,
Negative
nah, this
Nancy's.
will not work. Nah, this is bound to be a failure. If somebody says it for a logical, factual reason, listen to them. That they might be true.
Yeah.
But if it's the standard disposition of that individual, run a mile. It does not help.
Yeah.
It's
And if you're
the
that sort
truth.
of
If there's
person, what
anyone
do you do?
around you like that, run a mile.
What do you do if you're that kind of person?
Stop being that kind of person. That's an asshole thing to do to a human being.
Right.
Because taking what energy that is left of a person, because for some weird reason or the other you want to feel better, or the person who's giving advice wants to feel better, is probably one of the most damning things a human can do.
Emotional vampires.
No, there are lots of those around.
Yeah.
And make no mistake about it, they are around you right now. Ignore them or move away from them. They
Shoot them with a silver bullet.
They do
Stake
not
them in the heart.
stake them in the heart. They do not help. Yeah, that's a reality that you have to contend with as well. But yeah, so that's essentially what you say. Peaks, drops, passions. These are things that you anyway have to deal with, right? Life is complicated. If you had lived a fairly because your parents will take care of you to a large extent for a long time, especially in
guess-
Sri Lanka.
Yeah, I guess that is very specific to us and Asia culturally.
Correct.
than,
Brown people
Correct.
situation.
brown, beige, that set of colors.
And if you think that's the world that you are going to walk into, you're sorely mistaken. It is so far from the truth. If you ever believe that, again, hit your head with like something very, very hard so that you reset your head and say, okay, no, this is not the world that I'm supposed to. I'm going into a tough place
Yeah.
with tough people that have gone through shit.
For the history of forever, everything is trying to kill you.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like literally, that's the premise of every religion in the world. But
Yeah.
I mean, don't look at the world in a miserable way. But what I'm saying is, try to understand that is the reality, and therefore make yourself stronger to face that reality. That's essentially the core premise of what I am saying. And don't get too hooked up in this love for passion. I mean, like this thing for passion, and I want to be passionate about this, and I don't want to do something that I'm not passionate about.
And then end up traveling the world for 6 months on like nothing.
I know. I personally believe that if you manage to travel the entire, like a lot of the world, for whatever budget.
That's just a jab. That's not a fact.
Yeah, I mean, exposure in every possible.
Exposure is great.
Yeah.
Traveling opens up your mind in different ways. So
Definitely. Yeah.
So that's a jab for anyone who's listening. That was purely a jab.
Yeah.
But essentially,
Yeah, don't cancel your tickets. It's not a good thing to do.
Especially if you come to Sri Lanka.
yeah, learn that it's a tough world. And when you are starting out, I would always say, go at it. The reality is there is no substitute, even if you're talented, there is no substitute to hard work. There is absolutely no substitute to that.
Yeah.
And if you believe there is a substitute to that, either you are a genius, then you have to work harder, which is the reality again, because people will be expecting a lot more things from you.
Right.
Or alternatively, you are deranged and you are wrong.
Sorry for jumping at that, but I mean, come on, it's just itching. It's like, you're wrong. That's what this is.
Simply wrong.
I mean, in terms of work, yeah, but there's one more aspect. I mean, we spoke quite a bit about work and life, right? In general, I mean, more about work than we did about life. But
So the entire point was that there's no, there shouldn't be a partition between saying what is work and what is life.
yeah, that's okay.
Work
But
is an inherent part of life.
What
Learn to
I'm-
deal with that first of all.
what I'm trying to get at over here
Yeah.
is one of the side effects of this focus and this grind is going into something like a state of depression, right? This is something that a lot of people speak about that happens to them when they get into this kind of work, especially in the world of startups, and especially if you're trying to do something that no one else has done before.
Sure.
You more often have to go up against walls that never seem to end,
Correct.
right? And how exactly do you guys deal with that when you all come against insurmountable odds, what you all would consider insurmountable odds? I don't know if you guys have actually faced a situation that is like that. That while you were, I mean, I'm not saying that it's a completely insurmountable odd. Obviously, everything is surmountable to an extent. But when you first approached that problem, it just felt like something there is no way you are not capable of handling that. And you just go into this state of, fuck it. You know what? I'm done.
So luckily I worked in corporate, so I've had tough times, but I have never been put in a situation where there were walls that had to be broken through, but they were not unending set of walls. It was not insurmountable in my head at any given point. maybe exactly as soon as I started, I was like, I'm going to quit this place in 6 months. Actually, this is how it worked. I joined that company and I went through such a terrible time in the first 2 months. I said, 3 months I'm out because I can't work in this place. Because I was degraded to virtually nothing, and I was like literally like a fly on the wall, and any self-respect that I had towards me was gone. And the people around me made sure that was the case.
Right.
Then I told myself, if I leave in 3 months, I will be considered a loser. I'm going to battle on. Yeah, I'll battle on to 6 months. Let me push on to 6 months. I pushed on to 6 months. Then I thought to myself, 6 months, now that I've got into 6 months, I will do at least 1 year in this place. I know it's hell, but I will go through this and I'll push through. It turned into a year.
Right.
In about a year, people started realizing, yeah, this bugger is not going anywhere. And then gradually small things started changing because the environment around you starts adapting to your pressure as well. There's pressure on you, but then if you're pushing back, there's the environment around you starts adapting to you as well. Gradually. Then as the environment starts adapting me, you sense it. You get weak signals that there is a change that is happening.
Right.
Like very weak signals. I picked up on those and said, okay, fine. These little things, there are some little things that I'm very good at. Like 90% of the job I'm very bad at.
Right.
But I has 10% that I'm fairly decent at. I'm gonna keep on hitting on these things. That's why it's very important to find mentors. At these points, you need to go and you need to find people that will say, okay, don't worry about the 90%, go after that 10%, go after that 5%, go after that one thing.
Right.
Yeah. So I had few of those around me.
Okay.
The moment you break through that first pressure point, then you're a little bit more comfortable with your life, with your work. Then you start gradually, so you're crawling all this time, you gradually get onto your knees and start going forward. Then you get up, start walking. And at a point, your environment will start adapting to you completely.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Then start running at it, like start moving at it. I don't know. I have never experienced a startup. I haven't experienced like going through a bankruptcy. I assume that is a exceedingly painful, hard thing to do, especially if you are young, especially if you are 20, 21, and because you do have no sense of what the fuck is going on, right?
Or what failure even really looks like.
Yeah.
Right?
So so the only real experience I have is in a startup, and bankruptcy was like my middle name for about 3 years.
One venture after the other.
It is exceedingly painful because it was exceedingly painful for me because at one point I was the only one who was bringing any sort of revenue into the company. So the lives of the 13 other people that I worked, did everything with, because like 18-hour workdays, 20-hour workdays, right? All those people I felt were resting on me because I'm the only one bringing revenue in. And the salary that they get at the end of the month with their wives and children and all that was somehow my responsibility at this point.
Yeah.
And it's your personal responsibility at that point.
Yeah,
right?
at
That's
that
how
point.
you have to take it.
Yeah. And if you don't take it that way, then you are bound to fail anyway.
Yeah.
So how did I do? I didn't succeed, first of all. Failed there, crashed and burned really hard. But the way I approached it when I was given this task was, well, I won't know till I try. So let's just try.
Yeah. So you keep on going at it. Like you have to have a degree of self-determination.
Yeah.
not a degree of, you have to have self-determination, period. There's no degree of it. You have to have it. If you want to be successful, that has to be there. There's no
That
again way
trait
around
must
it.
exist,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like hard work. It's
Yeah.
you have to be determined to be successful or
Yeah.
not. Yeah. You
Yeah, there's no guaranteed return on hard work. You just have to make sure
make
it
sure
happens.
it just happens. It just happens. My general view is, if you do it for long enough, even if you are not the brightest mind in the world, or if you are not good at what you do, but if you work really hard enough, I guarantee you people will see it.
No, definitely. But what I meant by there's no guarantee on hard work, there's no guarantee on hard work is that there are time and budget constraints that go with all of this as well, right?
Yeah.
So if your runway is going to run out in the next 3 months, just because you work hard for those 3 months does not mean that things will be fine at the end of it.
Yeah. But self-determination and again pushing through the boundaries is very critical. One more thing, what you said, I wanted to pick up. See, again, I'm referring back to Jordan Peterson on this one.
Sure.
Guys, if you have time, this is highly recommended. Go and check out all the lectures of Jordan Peterson.
All the, like 400 hours of lectures.
of
Yes.
Jordan Peterson, if you get a chance. There's a wonderful book, 12 Rules for Life. If you can't read the entire book, at least read a synopsis of it.
Yeah, there's brilliant audiobooks.
And there are brilliant audiobooks. And one thing he emphasizes on consistently, saying happiness is not a thing. It's a bad measure to judge a life from. Because happiness is an emotion. It comes and goes and comes and goes, and you can't be eternally happy.
And you can't will yourself to
To
be
have happy, yeah. And if you're on drugs, and if you are on drugs and you're happy, you won't survive that long.
That's cheating.
But happiness is a bad KPI to performance indicator to judge your life.
I guess so, but I mean, in this instance, what I was going more along the lines of is that when you are sad and down, right, it messes with how efficient you can be, and that turns into a negative feedback loop.
Correct.
And how exactly can you break out of those? Because I have found in my life that more often than not, it's not really running after the positive loops that gets you a lot
It's
further.
learning how to deal with the negative
It's pretty much avoiding them is almost life or death, whereas capitalizing on your positive is about explosive growth or just growth, right? That's the choice, but the other one is a life or death sort of thing. You don't learn to manage how to be like terribly depressed about how pathetic like you have hit what a rock bottom you've hit, right?
Can I just
Yeah, go for it.
push on this one? That's why I was just about to say. So what you said, eventually there was a responsibility of 13 people on my head. I had to make it work.
Yeah.
So again, going back to Jordan Peterson, he says your worst KPI is happiness. Probably the one thing that you can work towards is ensuring that you fulfill responsibilities. Fulfill enough responsibilities, you will eventually become happy, because there will be a feedback loop that gives you happiness at some point or the other. And obviously your brain will tell you you might be fucking up in style, but you are actually at least responsible for the people and you are actually trying to do something for it. At least that will stay with you. I think that's very important I think that's a very clear distinction that has to be made. Chasing happiness again has constructs to it. I think the primary construct is responsibility. And even if it's somebody else's money or you're in a startup or whatever, you still have responsibility towards that money that is being given to you.
And not just right, it's your idea, right?
You have a responsibility towards the fact that you've collected an idea from the universe, and all of a sudden that
Now
idea...
you are entrusted to fulfill it, right?
Yeah, exactly. There is a responsibility.
Yeah.
Find responsibility and try your best to fulfill that responsibility, even in the worst circumstances.
Sure.
It might
Especially in the worst.
especially in the worst circumstances, it has a great propensity to help you come out of that negative loop that you are in, because you are doing something, right? You are not letting the current carry you downwards. You are actually at least battling the current to get to the edge of the river.
Yeah.
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 At least battle it. I mean, that's I think to answer the question, what happens when you get into a negative loop is be very clear cut on the responsibility that you have taken on.
Basically do a hard reset of what your value structure is in your life and just start focusing and being like, this is the least possible change that I can do in order to achieve the objective that I want.
Correct. Generally, that stems from having a deep inherent responsibility towards either the people or the idea that you have or the people you deal with or the money that you have taken or whatever
it is,
or society or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is, but find your point of responsibility and say, okay, fine, this responsibility I'll fulfill at least. At least it will still, I'll get still dragged down, but I will fulfill the responsibility.
There's a very real possibility of failing, but regardless, I will put everything I have into it.
Correct. That's that I think is a wonderful way to live a life, and from everything that I've experienced in my short life, by the way, I'm not that old, is old. Is that that format of thinking generally tends to help. I mean, most people I've seen have been successful because of that. They don't know, they haven't articulated this correctly for themselves, but that is what they're doing day to day. So I think that's,
and that works both ways. Like, you can not articulate the point but live the life, and you can figure out how to articulate it and then derive the set of behaviors that will live that life.
However way you want to approach it, that's fine. But now that we have put it out, saying responsibility is very key to getting out of rut.
So I have a question on that point.
Not everything feels like it is a responsibility.
No, it can't be.
No, by everything I mean, even if you are in a rut, it's if you are in a state where responsibilities don't appeal to you, what do you do then?
Do you still fulfill them? That's the point. That is the inherent point.
I guess that's what it means for something to be a responsibility.
Remember, responsibilities will not appeal in many ways to many people.
They're not generally they're unpleasant things to do.
Some, I mean, okay, let's debate that. I mean, I don't know whether for some people responsibilities are fulfilling things. When you're highly conscientious, responsibility is a very like, if you are trade conscientious, you're somebody who will.
Yeah, if you have trade conscientiousness, that would still be a minority of the population.
No, say it's 50-50. Let's just assume it's 50. I don't know what the trade conscientious levels in the world. By the way, guys, what we're talking about is there is the big five of personality traits. One of them is conscientiousness, and it's the capability. I mean, the easiest way to describe it is the desire to be responsible for a thing. It's the simplest way to describe it. But it's much deeper than that. We can't get into it because it's another entire conversation topic to talk about.
We're not exactly qualified
to talk about it either. But even if you're in a rut, while it is not appealing, what you need to try and do is, say to yourself, this is not appealing. It doesn't really matter because it's still a responsibility that I have to fulfill, and I will fulfill it.
Right.
I mean, there is no easy way out of a rut. That's the whole point of being in a rut. There is no easy out. There's no easy path that people will.
There is no back.
I mean, other than that, other than taking antidepressants and getting high, there is no easy way out of it. And even if you take
antidepressants can be a solution, but getting high is more often like a bandage. It'll eventually come back to
both of them. I mean, like for true psychological issues, yes, antidepressants are necessary, but we are not talking about that. But don't pop pills to feel better because it will eventually crash. The reality of life again is that it will eventually crash, and it's a very dangerous path to go down on.
Yeah, see, I think that's important point to understand that
And don't do drugs. Don't do too much drugs.
drugs are mostly bad for you.
I beg to disagree. I mean, this is just my opinion, but to me, what drugs really are, right? Are just, I believe that sobriety, like seeing the world sober, is just a lens, and each one of these different types of drugs will just change that lens.
oh, but that agreed to a certain point.
And within reason,
Yeah.
changing these lenses frequently will help you see the world for more than what you can usually see.
Trust me, I agree on this one.
It's just that you can't officially agree.
No. I agree on what you just said, but it is not the solution. That's what you need to remember.
But a solution to the
So
crippling
we are talking
depression.
about us being in a rut, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Being in a rut, like
is
seeing
not
things
a
in
solution.
Yeah.
Wouldn't fresh perspective on your life and your
See,
problems
no.
give
See,
you a better
usually
answer?
you are in a rut from my experience.
Mm-hmm.
You are in a rut when you have a certain set of beliefs about how reality works,
Right.
but they're wrong.
Oh.
Correct.
So it's basically reframing that in the sober world that will help you out, ideally.
Well,
It's
I
just that
don't
there's
know
no-
if it's a sober world or not. But
doesn't
essentially
matter.
what's happening is you're walking around with a set of ideas and reality is slapping you in the face.
Right.
That is what a rut is.
That's
it?
one form
One
of
form of a rut?
rut,
Yeah.
But either way, there are short, easy ways out of it. But they are. That's the whole point. They are short and they're easy, and
They come with the problems entailed with
difficulties are not easy to solve, and that's why they again why
They're
I
called
repeat it.
difficulties.
That's why they called difficulties. And all you can do is, I mean, I would always tell people, go back to the core responsibilities you have. They are in itself. You will fulfill certain things.
Here's the thing. What if you don't have responsibilities?
There are no circumstances in which you don't.
Well,
Human life cannot operate without.
from your current perception, you are in a rut. And the way you look around it, you don't have responsibility.
You don't. It's not that you don't have responsibilities.
You're not aware of the responsibilities you have.
You have foregone your responsibility. You have disowned your responsibility.
Yeah, I would go along more those lines. I
Yeah,
can't
sure,
think
sure.
of a
I have not.
No, I mean, I understand what you're trying to say, right? If I was in one of those ditches,
Yeah.
and I was listening to this by any chance, and you were like, deal with your responsibilities, I'd be like, okay, like I barely
What
get
the
up.
fuck do you mean?
I barely get up in the morning with like with any sort of direction. What are these responsibilities you're even speaking about?
Okay, you don't get up. So you are in a rut. Your company has failed.
Yeah,
things are in
let's go with
shit,
this.
right?
It's not, by the way,
I
just
have-
for like the
I
topic,
have-
right?
I'm drinking in the night, sleeping till 2 o'clock in the morning, and hence I'm in a rut, right?
Mm-hmm.
One responsibility. Give yourself a full 8 hours during daytime, at least. That is a responsibility towards you. That's a small responsibility. You don't think that's a responsibility?
I mean,
That is a responsibility. That is, in a way, a responsibility. And if you believe that human life cannot exist without responsibility, that's factual, because we live in packs and we can't avoid and we live in complex social groupings, right?
Yeah.
And you have a responsibility towards yourself. If you are in a rut, if you are not waking up in the morning, be responsible to wake up in the morning. Again, going back to Jordan Peterson, he says, clean your bed in the morning. Arrange your bed in the morning. Jordan Peterson, there was this brilliant speech by
Navy
Admiral McRaven.
Yep.
At least do that. That is the first. That's a damn good responsibility to start with.
Yeah.
Set an alarm and wake up.
Yep.
First responsibility.
right.
If you have now gotten into setting the alarm, waking up and doing nothing, set the alarm, wake up, and then next week do one little thing. Sweep your room.
Yeah.
Right.
Then set the alarm, sweep your room, and
Arrange your table. Like
arrange.
whatever.
Yeah, like if you're not eating, start eating healthy.
Right.
Those are responsibilities. Responsibilities are not always external. So when I say responsibility, is responsibility towards yourself as well. Taking care of your mind, taking care of your body are responsibilities. Because if you are not responsible for your body and your mind, somebody else will have to be towards you. And you are then becoming a drain on that person that is taking care of you. So responsibility is not an external thing. Responsibility can be completely internal. And then you have to say, okay, I have now fulfilled the second responsibility that I have given myself. I will do the third. I will do the fourth. Couple of things. Talking about ruts, I think I have to mention this because we are on the subject. It's a great thing if you can write down the things that you want to do. Writing things down helps, especially if you are down.
Journaling helps a lot.
Yeah, journaling, or not even journaling, at least having a task list. Saying, I will fulfill this. Remember, at the end of the day, your brain gives you a feedback saying, at least out of the 20 things that I have set out to do, I have done. And like when the 20 things is clean my bed, sweep my room, eat breakfast.
Right.
Put those 10 things down, and you will at least at the end of the day have some fulfillment saying, I set out to do something, and we are going into depression mode, but this is not to get into this. We are not talking about depression. We are talking about being in a difficult position.
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah.
But
losing faith in yourself.
yeah, so at least giving those 10-15 things that you want to do, that's responsibility, and that will help.
Yeah.
So that's why I said always look for responsibility when you are in difficult position. It can be external. It can be, if you can't find something external, do it internally.
Are you saying that from the position of someone who is highly conscientious, or does this
No,
apply?
So for example, I am not a conscientious person. I have fairly low consciousness. I had to develop it. It's still energy zapping for me. No, I'm not talking about highly conscientious people.
This is not specifically for people who are
Highly conscientious people will not have a problem with
with
this
it.
stuff.
Yeah, most of them won't have. You can't say that as well. I don't know. I'm not very
doubtful.
sure.
That's
I'm not very
not a
sure.
statement we can make.
No,
we
yeah.
are neither qualified to make
No,
that
definitely.
statement.
Like this is
No, we can make.
it's
Can
just
we
my
make that
opinion on
generalization?
this.
Yeah.
I'm not a psychologist.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's not for highly conscientious people or not, but or highly non-conscientious people. I don't even know whether that's a word, but essentially, work towards finding some responsibility at least towards yourself.
Work your way up in sort of baby steps, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's like following that. What's the principle? The Japanese principle, Kaizen.
Kaizen.
Yeah. Like incremental improvement.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah, it those work. Incremental, consistent improvements help.
Yeah.
Over time.
I feel like that they have usually been more successful, even in my personal experience, when you're trying to strive. So my method of learning now is to go for Kaizen, because in a lot of the fields that I study, I have reached quite far out into the edge.
Right.
Where the people who are on the same level that I am are sitting down and writing fancy ass papers that I barely can understand because I lack a lot of formal training. Right. So the best that I can do now is that I have to start venturing out on my own.
Yeah.
Right. So then the way that you set benchmarks for yourself is, this is where it is today. It's a new day today. How far am I going to be pushing this? Just ever so slightly. Because I can't picture what the best rendition of what I have right now is. I can only picture what is currently missing from this and what I can do to make it slightly better.
Yeah, so that's a segue on learning, but it relates back to the idea of gradual self-improvement.
Yeah.
If you are in a bad place, just gradually improve yourself.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so that's essentially about work and life. I think that's my approach to it. You both of you said what your approaches are, and let's just like go back now quickly and just quickly we will talk about what we spoke about. We spoke about work and life. General view, I think all three of us agree on this.
Yeah.
Work is life and life is work,
yeah.
and I mean it's perfectly fine to have both in your life. It's both. We spoke about the necessity to find a passion. Not, I mean, it'll be great if you have something that you're passionate about that you can turn into a career, but that happens very rarely.
Yeah.
If you work at something, you might get passionate about it. That is a more constructive way of looking at it, rather than being very displeased with yourself, saying I can't fulfill my passion. We spoke about learning. I gave my version of learning. Diresh gave his version of learning, and in Kaizen, you gave your version of learning. And I think we spoke about what can possibly be done if the world around you is falling apart, especially at work. I mean, this applies to life as well.
Life as well. Yeah.
But especially if the world is falling apart, even at your job or at your new startup, you can essentially find responsibility, at least towards yourself, if possible towards the outer world, and the likelihood is that you will come out of it. And I think, do not be afraid of it. It's a reality of life that you will eventually you will face it.
Yeah.
There is no circumstance in which you will not face a bad month or a bad day or a bad year or bad 2 years or a bad decade.
Yeah.
It will happen. All you can do is strengthen yourself in a way that, or find techniques to gradually pull yourself out of it.
Yeah.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay.
Man, it was a long episode this time. So glad all of you guys are still listening.
If you are listening,
They wouldn't hear it otherwise.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you're listening, you probably need to go and do something else.
But you are armed now with how to deal with downers, uppers, and general improvement, like how to improve yourself.
No,
So
I mean,
there you
it's just a sobering view on reality. Like, just it is how it is. You are not going to have good times all the time. You are not going to have bad times all the time. Most people's lives fluctuate between the two. Just learn how to deal with both.
Yep. And you definitely can. All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Once again, we are not on radio, but thanks for clicking on our faces. All right. See you guys later.